So by the end of this video, you're going to feel empowered that you don't need to be chasing one skill. This is not about chasing one skill that you need to have. This is not about fitting a triangle into a square, none of that. By the end of this video, you're going to find your unique path to conscious empowerment, to your inner power, your own inner power, and to your intentional awareness. So there are 8 paths that I've laid out, and to make sense of this, you might want to go back and check my previous video from last week that I've done a full breakdown on this for all this to make sense and to put it into context. So this is what I've put together. This is the Civility Constellation. And before I go any further, you may be asking, why 8? Why are they 8? Why not 10 and 5? What I found in my own reflection, my own contemplation, my own time, months and months of putting this together, and I wrote a whole book on this, these 8 civilities cut directly to the core of how human beings engage with themselves, each other, and the world as a whole. So, for example, someone may not be interested at all in charisma, but they may be very gifted in assertiveness. Or they may not be interested in articulation whatsoever, but they may be a very empathetic person. And the next question you may ask is, why are they presented like this? Well, because they're all interlocking facets of what I call our human OS, our human operating system. They are all supporting and elevating each other. And I chose a constellation here to represent this visually because on this constellation, no star outshines the rest. Each star, each skill, each civility has a unique importance, and each of them amplify each other. Second way is that there's a subtle, indirect connection. And the third way is that there's no connection at all. Each connection here multiplies your inner power. So what I mean by that is intentionally developing one civility results in a natural improvement in that corresponding civility. A thinner line on the constellation here, like this one here, for example, indicates the exact same thing, but just on a more subtle level. And most importantly, the whole point in us looking at this constellation, identifying your unique path here, is what's in the center here. Underlying and empowering each of these 8 civilities here is just one single principle: intentional awareness. This intentional awareness is the living force that animates each of these civilities, these skills. It is the living force that animates you. It is the living force that animates the real you. And if you don't know what I mean by that, go back and watch my video from last week. It'll make sense. So intentional awareness, what I mean by this essentially is it is the conscious and deliberate practice of being fully attuned to yourself and others in any given moment. So that's what we're aiming for here. And to get started, we need to identify your leading strength, your leading civility. And then once we have that, you can start stacking these skills that are related or closely related to your leading civility. To recap last video, the civilities are the following. Are you ready? Empathy, emotional regulation, charisma, negotiation, persuasion, assertiveness, articulation, and foresight. You can pause this video right now to just have a think about which one of those civilities you think may be your single strength. And if you truly don't know, if you're unsure, then I've got a very deep questionnaire in my book here that I've written. This is on page 37 to help you find your leading civility. I've written 72 very thought-provoking questions in here, and all the instructions are here. It takes you through step by step, and you go through and score yourself on each of these questions. And at the end, you find your leading civility. So you can check that out if you want. The link to that is in the description below. So let's get straight into it. I'm going to assume by this point that you've taken some time out to a few seconds to think about which of these civilities is your strength, or maybe you've done the questionnaire already, you've read the book and you've done the questionnaire. If that's it, great. Let's get into it. So the first one, empathy here. This is what I call the reflective civility. So if your leading civility is empathy, you have direct, strong connections to, first of all, emotional regulation. Your genuine understanding of others deepens your composure. Next, charisma. Your empathic resonance creates a real genuine warmth, and that makes your charisma very authentic and unforced. Next, negotiation. Your ability to understand others' perspectives, that means, well, it leads to more humane win-win deals. These ones here are recommended. These strong direct connections are what I would recommend you to focus on. You do have the option, like all of these we're about to go into, of stacking optional civilities. So as you can see here, the connection between empathy and persuasion is a subtle indirect connection. So what this means is basically reading emotional cues in other people can make your persuasive appeals to them more tailored and effective. And the second subtle indirect one here is from empathy to articulation. Your empathy here, it guides your tone, your choice of words to match the audience needs. So to recap real quickly, today consider stacking emotional regulation, charisma and negotiation. And if you would like to, you can consider the optional stack of persuasion and articulation. Next, emotional regulation. This is what I call the stabilising civility. So the first direct strong connection here is to empathy, not a surprise. You staying composed allows you to remain open and receptive to other people's feelings. The next strong stack here is from emotional regulation to assertiveness. Your emotional stability ensures that you can stand your ground without aggression. And the next one here is from emotional regulation to foresight. Your ability to keep a clear head helps in planning ahead without panic or impulsivity. Some optional stacks here, emotional regulation to charisma and to negotiation. So to charisma, your calm demeanor here often radiates into a more grounded, appealing presence. And to negotiation, well, obviously neutralizing your stress and those of others, well, that helps in preventing conflict escalation, right? Charisma, what I call the magnetic civility. So we've got a direct, strong connection to empathy and persuasion. So to empathy, your ability to genuinely see others, actually see them, well, that raises your magnetism. And to persuasion, well, an engaging presence obviously amplifies your ability to influence others, doesn't it? And you've got some subtle connections here, which are optional, to emotional regulation, negotiation, and to foresight. So for these optional ones, maybe consider stacking emotional regulation. Because, for example, your composure under stress, that contributes to a confident magnetic aura. And I did a whole video on this concept just recently. I'll pin that for you up here. You can take a look at that. It's what I call charisma under fire. And I've provided a whole heap of hobbies based on your archetype. I've identified 5 archetypes in that video. So if you are interested by that, I'd encourage you to go check that video out. And to negotiation here, well, negotiators with a genuine spark in them, they can often just command the room. And the optional connection to foresight, well, a visionary aura that strengthens your charismatic leadership. Now moving on to negotiation. This is what I call the strategic civility. So we've got strong direct connections to empathy, to persuasion, and to assertiveness. So to empathy, well, understanding underlying needs of the other party or the other person, that's going to lead to fairer, more successful deals. To persuasion here, well, crafting compelling offers to the other person is essential to successful deal making. And then we've got to assertiveness. So you standing firm on critical points, well, that's going to ensure balanced agreements, hopefully in your favor. And then from those, we've got some more subtle, indirect, optional connections, right? So we've got one here to emotional regulation, to charisma, and to foresight. So to emotional regulation here, well, obviously staying cool under pressure, well, that's going to help you prevent escalations, right? And to charisma, well, your warmth and your approachability can help tip the scales in your favor. And then to foresight, well, your ability to anticipate future implications of deals, that's going to refine your negotiation strategy. And moving on to persuasion. So this is the one that a lot of people don't want to work on. They just aren't inclined, they don't like persuasion, they don't like the thought of it, but it is so powerful, and if it's done correctly, it can change people's lives. So you've got strong direct connections here to charisma, not a surprise, negotiation, and foresight. So to charisma here, well, having a captivating presence, well, that can make your influential appeals to the other person a lot more compelling. To negotiation, these really go hand in hand, persuasion and negotiation. To negotiation here, well, every effective deal rests on your ability to sway people's opinions. And the third strong connection here to foresight, you can plan your persuasive strategy a lot more effectively when you have a mind to future trends or objections of the other person. And then for the persuasive ones, we've got some indirect optional connections that you may consider stacking. So to empathy here, and then to assertiveness and articulation. So empathy, reading the emotions of the other person standing opposite you, that can help immensely customize your appeal to them. And then a subtle indirect connection from persuasion to assertiveness. Well, firm conviction from you can make your case a whole lot more compelling. And then the third indirect connection here to articulation, having a clear, well-structured message to the other person, that's going to boost your persuasiveness. Assertiveness. This is the empowering civility. So we've got a direct connection, a strong connection to emotion regulation, a strong direct connection to negotiation, and a strong connection to articulation. If your leading civility is in assertiveness, I would strongly recommend you consider stacking emotional regulation, because your ability to control your emotions helps you be firm without aggression. Direct connection to negotiation. Well, knowing your boundaries with that other person helps you avoid just needless concessions. And then the third direct connection to articulation. Being firm with that other person, that really does often hinge on your ability to state your stance clearly to them. Some optional civilities that you may consider stacking are persuasion and foresight. Combining assertiveness with persuasion, well, standing your ground can make your arguments a whole lot more convincing. And just on that point, I've done a whole video on this using a storytelling technique called Saga that I created. I've linked that for you up here. You may want to check that out. It's about standing in your own right while naturally and organically influencing the other person. And then you may consider optionally stacking assertiveness with improving your foresight. So by this, what I mean is planning your future steps can help you figure out when and how to assert yourself. Very important, strategically asserting yourself. Moving up now, we've got articulation. This is the expressive civility, right? Before I continue with articulation, if you're finding this helpful or interesting in any way, maybe just consider hitting subscribe down below. That would really help me out grow this channel from where it is right now. It lets me know that you're interested in what I'm doing here, and it provides me with the ability to help a lot more people like yourself. So with articulation, we've got two very strong direct connections to assertiveness and foresight. So you stacking and improving your assertiveness here, well, clear language really does help you stand up for yourself. It's crucial. And then we've got foresight. So you sharing your vision with other people, that really hinges on you conveying a compelling, articulate, crystal clear vision through your articulation. Some more subtle, indirect connections that you may optionally consider are empathy and persuasion. So to empathy, your sensitivity to others' viewpoints can help guide the way you phrase your message to them. Very important in helping influence them for positive means. And then your optional stack to persuasion here. Clear messaging from you really underpins influential arguments. Having a clear message can change the minds of many. Last but not least, foresight. This is the Visionary Civility. And this is the dark horse. If you don't know what I mean by that, please go back and watch my previous video from last week. We've got strong direct connection to emotion regulation, to persuasion, and to articulation. What does that mean for you, the visionary? So, emotion regulation. Well, predicting future outcomes is a lot more easier and reliable when you aren't clouded by stress, right? To persuasion here, well, predicting potential objections of that other person, that really enhances your strategic influence. And then your third direct connection to articulation. Communicating your compelling vision to that other person is only possible if you can put that beautiful, compelling vision of yours into actual words for them to understand. And to round this up, for the visionaries out there, we've got some subtle, indirect, optional connections here for you to charisma, negotiation, and articulation. So, charisma, having a visionary outlook can enhance your leadership aura. To negotiation, considering improving your negotiation skill, well, your ability to identify potential long-term outcomes that haven't happened yet, that's going to refine your negotiation stance and your strategy. And next to assertiveness here, well, if you can anticipate potential objections and arguments from the other person, that's going to help you preemptively position yourself to avoid those conflicts altogether. So congratulations, you've just made it through this journey with me looking at the civility ecosystem, which is visually represented here in the Civility Constellation. If you are still unsure on your leading civility, I really would encourage you to check out my new book that I've just released. There's a link to this in the description below. Again, there's that questionnaire on page 37, and it takes about 10 or 15 minutes to do, but it really provokes some ways of thinking that may be new to you, that help you discover some things inside of you that you may not have seen yet. So that questionnaire will definitely help you find your leading civility. So that's on page 37. And if you want the full breakdown as to why I've done this video, how I came to the civility ecosystem, and how I came to represent it here as the Civility Constellation, why, and the full context to all this, please go ahead and watch the video that I did last week. I'll leave a link for you again up here to check that out. And if this was interesting for you, please just drop a like below and maybe just comment which of these civilities you want me to go deeper on further into the future. I'm going to be doing a lot more videos going into each of these civilities into more detail and how we can use these to build up this personal power inside of us, which has always been there. We're just rediscovering it just now, for us to rekindle and strengthen this connection that we have to the real you here in the middle, intentional awareness. Thank you for watching. And for this all to make full sense, just go here to check out the full video that I did last week, and I'll see you right there.